Okay, so welcome. In this slideshow, I'll be going over a few key points from the book How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler and Charles Van Doren. These two guys are some of the more recent proponents of liberal education. And so it's safe to say that within liberal education, books play a pretty major role. And so I'm taking this book as it highlights something about a liberal education approach to learning. So first, books and liberal education. Books play a pretty central role in liberal learning because liberal education doesn't just say that education happens within the walls of a classroom or while you're pursuing a degree. Most schools of education don't, philosophies of education don't really say that, but liberal education is pretty, I think, fairly explicit on that point. So they say here in the book this quote: "For those of us who are not in school, and indeed for those of us who are, when we try to read books that are not required or assigned, our continuing education depends mainly on books alone, read without a teacher's help." So for that purpose, those last couple lines, that our continuing education depends mainly on books read without a teacher's help, that means it's on us. It's on us to wrestle with the book, to try to understand the book. And use that to help us continue our personal education. So, what is the goal of reading? There's three really possible kind of explanations here, I guess, or approaches. We read for information, entertainment, or understanding. Reading for information is great. Most of us do that. Entertainment, also nice, but the emphasis here is on understanding. Um, and so the goal is to go from a state of understanding less to understanding more. And the writer, we have to approach it as if the writer is communicating something that can increase the reader's understanding. In other words, we have to kind of keep ourselves open to what the writer, what the author is trying to tell us here. And there's four types of reading, and they kind of build on each other here. The first is elementary reading. That's something like skimming. That's not elementary reading as in something done in elementary school, but it has to do with skimming, where you just kind of go over a book, get the general feel for it, but you don't really give it a thorough reading. And and then there's inspectional reading, which is more superficial, and that's really just when you read the book through once, but don't necessarily really study it. This is probably one of the more helpful points for me in this book. Is just the idea is just kind of the tip to read the book through once. Like, don't get so caught up in the first time reading a book of trying to understand everything. Just read it through, get the general feel, and then after that, if you're really up for it, you can move on to kind of higher reading, which is where the analytical reading comes in. When you ask questions of the book, you're really engaging with it, taking a lot of notes. And this is where the bulk of this book uh, relies on, or what it goes over, is analytical reading, approaches to analytical reading. After that, there's one more, which is syntopical reading. And that's a topical study. That's basically when you're taking a lot of different books together and studying, one topic at a time. If you want to learn about progress, and you'll take a few books and go over and see what all those different authors have to say on it. So you'll be reading different parts at a time, but with the purpose to really understand certain topics as you go along. Okay, so as I said, this book focuses on analytical reading. And there's 3 stages, 15 steps altogether. The stage 1 is finding what the book is about. In doing that, you want to classify the book according to kind and subject matter. So that's basically just saying that just know what you're reading. Is it philosophy? Is it literature? Is it history? That should be pretty easy to figure out there. If it's a mystery, then the author may not be the greatest. I don't know, but that should be pretty straightforward to figure out there. This is just important. All these steps are important because in the end, the goal is one, understanding, but you want to know where you're going throughout the book, where the author's taking you, know the end from the beginning, and all these steps that we'll go through kind of help you do that. At least these first few really help you do that. Number 2, state what the book is about with the utmost brevity. You should be able to do that without reading the book. You can do that by reading the introduction, the preface, whatever in like within the book flap there, whatever the author or the editor has written about the book should be able to tell you what the book is about. If that stuff is not there, then you may need to read the first chapter or so to have an idea. But make sure you know what the book is about as you go and be able to state that. Number 3, enumerate its major parts in their order and relation and outline these parts as you have outlined the whole. That's essentially saying that you'll have an outline of the book. And a lot of times that might be provided for you in the table of contents that the author gave you. If not, then you may need to make one for yourself. And again, the importance of this is that you know where you are and where you're going. In other words, where the author is at and where the author is taking you. So that you know where you're at every step of the way and know kind of the whole and the parts and how they relate to each other. Number 4, define the problem or problems the author has tried to solve. Hopefully, the author has said that at least what problems they're trying to solve, what questions they're after, somewhere in the beginning of the book, so that you know what to look for, what exactly they're speaking to. So you should be able to identify those things. So those are the first 4 steps. Now we go to stage 2, rules for interpreting a book's content. So number 5, come to terms with the author by interpreting his key words. Most authors have certain key words and phrases that they use throughout the book, and they might put those out for you explicitly and define them for you. If they do that, make sure you take good notes on that, and because they'll be using them quite frequently, and usually they're pretty central to what their message is. Number 6, grasp the author's leading propositions by dealing with his most important sentences. So that basically just means that you're going to highlight certain passages that seem to be really key parts of the author's arguments. They may do that for you sometimes if they italicize certain sentences or something like that. If they do that, make sure you take a note of those, because that's the author telling you that that's important stuff. If they don't do that, then you'll have to find those things on your own. Number 7, know the author's arguments by finding them in or constructing them out of sequences of sentences. So that's where you're taking those sentences you highlighted in number 6 and kind of piecing those together throughout the book, so that you can know what kind of key ideas that the author is building on as he goes through. And number 8, determine which of his problems the author has solved and which he has not, and of the latter, decide which the author knew he had failed to solve. So earlier we talked about knowing what problems the author was approaching to try to solve and what questions he was going to speak to. Now you're going to determine if indeed he did solve those problems and which one maybe he left undone. So keep track of that. That again, this all helps to go to understanding the book better than just a casual reading would. Stage 3, rules for criticizing a book as a communication of knowledge. So number 9 here, do not begin criticism until you have completed your outline and your interpretation of the book. That is, do not say you agree, disagree, or suspend judgment until you can say, I understand. And this is a really key point, I think, here, because sometimes we might be inclined to just throw the whole thing out or disagree, but we can't really express why we disagree. That would be intellectually irresponsible there. So try to be able to pinpoint exactly why you agree or disagree, and you won't be able to do that until you say, I understand, like you understand the full scope of their argument, and then you're able to take it on much better. So number 10, do not disagree disputatiously or contentiously. And this, I'll put up number 11, demonstrate that you recognize the difference between knowledge and mere personal opinion by presenting good reasons for any critical judgment you make. So 10, 11 kind of work together, in that we shouldn't just kind of throw the thing out just because it goes against our opinions or something like that. Know the difference between knowledge and just personal opinion. If you're reading a book by someone like Karl Marx, maybe you're not a communist and you kind of have an aversion to a lot of stuff he writes, but don't just kind of throw the whole thing out and just disagree disputatiously. Wrestle with it and kind of get down to exactly why you may not like some of his arguments there. Number 12, show wherein the author is uninformed. I'll put all these together here. 13, show wherein the author is misinformed, where the author is illogical, and where the author's analysis or account is incomplete. So all these things, by the time you're done with the book and you know the arguments and you understand them, um, you're going to want to then go through this process. I mean, especially if you disagree, to be able to pinpoint where you think the author kind of missed the mark. Did he violate some rules of logic? Did he miss some key pieces of information? Was he uninformed on stuff? Was his account of something incomplete? So again, this is a lot of work to go through these 15 steps, but if the goal is to really educate yourself and to increase your understanding, then this is the way to do it. If you're just reading for information or entertainment, then you don't need to work as laboriously. But if you're really concerned about increasing your understanding and increasing your education and doing it on your own, these 15 steps are really nice to kind of be able to apply, even if it takes a lot of work. So I would recommend, if you're really interested, reading the rest of the book, reading the whole book, that is, as the authors get into this stuff and more things much more in detail. And it makes a lot of sense when they explain it. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Now go read.